Welcome forward here with the Eternal Poles of Claude Bragdon. This is Chapter 5, The Many Marriages. In the science of engineering, when the load upon structural member is so concentrated that it becomes dangerously overweight, the thing to do for safety is to distribute the load. By reason of a too exclusive preoccupation with the purely personal and physical aspects of love and sex, this particular segment of the span of life has become so overloaded as to endanger the entire fabric. In order to relieve this strain, it will be well to resort to that order of metaphysical engineering which shall effect a redistribution of the sex load where it properly belongs, namely, throughout the entire length and breadth of consciousness and the cosmos. For although in the narrow sense in which we have come to conceive of it, sex is not thus all-pervasive, it is the large sense, it is so. Sexuality and polarity ought to be thought of as an interchangeable terms, and in order to fix this idea firmly in the mind, let us think of bisection of humanity by sexual differentiations as cosmic polarity, and the bisection of everything by polarization as cosmic sex. For those two categories, two storehouses which contain all the furniture of consciousness and the cosmos, to one or the other of these, everything can be assigned by means of certain identification marks. The names of two categories are indifferently positive and negative, or masculine and feminine, but for the sake of brevity and universality, let us rather employ the symbol F and M, freed of all associations, M being understood to stand for what is simple, direct, primary, active, igneous, positive, masculine, and F for that which is complex, indirect, derivative, aqueous, passive, feminine. These all-pervasive and inescapable two-foldedness need not be dwelt upon at any length by reason of its obviousness. The most cursory survey of any department of natural science discovers it as an inexpugnable factor. While art, language, and mathematics, which are the expressions of ideas and emotions by means of symbols, may be said to exist at all only by reason of their pairs and of their opposites, straight and curved, light and dark, vowel and consonant, noun and verb, subject and predicate, odd and even, plus and minus, and so on. What is not obvious, or not so obvious, however, is that the constant and close relation subsisting between the corresponding terms of such pairs of opposites, and the fact that in general M may be said to be prime or generative, and F derivative. For in order to avoid the pitfalls of dualistic thinking implicated in the very idea of two-ness, it must be constantly borne in the mind that any two terms are only contrasted aspects of some one thing, or opposite phases of a single force. This is obvious in the positive and negative poles caused by the continuous flow of an electrical current. Sexual differentiation also, complex as it may appear, is perhaps not less simple in its origin, for it has been discovered that the rate of metabolism, that is, the rate at which the tissue or the tissues are exchanging energy, is fundamentally in the dictation of sex. The metabolism of the male proceeds at a higher rate than the female, so that it has been possible to effect a change of sex in certain birds and animals by modifying the metabolism by means of diet. Indeed, it may be universally true that the slackening of the life force is what causes the change from M to F. And this is exemplified in so many simple a thing as a fountain, or a column of smoke rising in still air. For when a jet of water spouts upwards at the point where gravity overcomes it, when the centrifugal changes to the centripetal, the single swift, dense, arrowy column breaks up and returns to pearly drops and twisted crystal ribbons. The powerful has become the graceful, and the straight the curved, the one the many. The masculine has transformed itself into the feminine. Exactly the same thing happens in the case of a tree, which is a sort of a slowed-down fountain. When the force of the sap rising through the hard, straight, vertical trunk slackens, that tree splits up into leaf-laden branches, which bend towards the earth again like the returning waters of a fountain. And because a tree is representation of an eternal becoming, it is a symbol of everything which becomes. The race of civilization from which a virile and warlike stock rises into its feminine phase of art, culture, and urbanity, the family, for which we have even the phrase the family tree, and the individual, whose life unfolds tree-like in time as does it form in space. For has not the body its trunk, bearing aloft the head, a calyx for the precious juices of the brain, and does not that trunk have limbs, and these lesser limbs, feet, hands, toes, fingers, just as a tree has large, lesser, and least branches? The fine art furnishes forth innumerable examples of such self or sex differentiation, M and Fness, which in it is one of the functions of the art to proclaim. A Greek Ionic column, for example, symbolizes a thrust upward in its fluted shaft, a striving against the force of gravity, and this arrested by the weight of the entablature. It divides and returns itself to the spiral volutes of the capital, like a flower on its stem, or the returning water of a fountain. Gothic cathedrals, towers, rod screens, traceried windows exhibit analogous transitions from M to F, simplicity and strength translating themselves into intricacies and fragility. Music and drama follow, in general, the tree-like structure, a mountain, a climax, a dying fall. It is not necessary to multiply examples for the aid of the foregoing. Anyone should be able to identify M and F in all their protean changes and interrelations and discerns their contrasted and constant characteristics. This is a profitable as well as amusing exercise, and in order to get the whole thing clear in the mind, it is a good idea to set down the corresponding terms of pairs of opposites in separate columns, so that reading down and set across the page, one gets a sense of the true nature of the great bisection, the characteristic of M and F, the cosmic man and the cosmic woman. Thus, M, masculine, man, positive, sun, day, fire, heat, light, straight, vertical, odd, primary, simple, direct, centrifugal, active, hard, subject, support. F, feminine, negative, woman, moon, night, water, cold, dark, curved, horizontal, even, derivative, complex, indirect, centripetal, passive, soft, predicate, weight. and so endlessly on. Such differentiations extend from the physical world to the metaphysical because the psychophysical threshold can separate the two is, after all, imaginary. What we call in Oriental philosophy name and form correspond respectively to noumena and phenomena, subjectively and objectively. These are M and F in the relation to each other because the first term is prime and generative of the second. Life, or name, precipitates and ensoul's form. In the human embryo, for example, there is a palpation in the place where the heart is to be, anterior to the appearance of that organ. Enriching our first list with certain more abstract metaphysical pairs of opposites, we might have, for example, name, subject, noumenal, abstract, universe, absolute. With form, object, phenomenal, concrete, multiverse, infinite. Name and form and all the rest must never be thought of as anything other than opposite aspects of oneness. This is not so difficult as it once was, for the time-space concept of the relativeness enables us to telescope time and space, for example, into one another in a way that used to be thought impossible, and the dissection of the atom makes increasingly probable the fact that not only is the universe, but its least unit, a multiverse. The mind, our one dissecting knife, in the order to function at all must divide, must differentiate, because we can discriminate only by means of contrast. But this habit of analysis must not atrophy in us the power to synthesize the function of the intuition. Thus, for purposes of understanding, we separately consider the ascending and descending streams of a fountain, discovering them to be in all ways antipodal. But we should not forget, meantime, that the fountain remains unalterably the fountain. It would be possible to add and add to this inventory of contrasted opposites until it approximated the size of a New York city telephone directory, and out of it there might emerge some sense that bipolar or androgyny, an entity in which all things live and move, have their being, and to which I have here given the inadequate name of the life force. But let us rather seek some generalization which shall summarize all that has gone before and organize all that may conceivably follow. We shall presently discover this generalization in a familiar mathematical concept. Beauty. The open secret of the cosmic sex, thus sketchily presented, of nature's many marriages, is equally the secret of beauty. The artist and the lover are alike in this both. Both are followers of the union. The prime requisite of a work of art is that it shall possess unity, and unity is achieved by the wedding of opposites, color with complementary, form with counterform, movement with counter-movement, phrase with counter-phrase. This polarity will extend from least things to greatest, will extend not only in the whole, but in every part, and in every part of every part. And there will be children of these unions in which unlike will be made like without ceasing to be different, just as a human child is like, yet unlike its parents. In architecture, for example, the arch, or the vault, is both weight and support, proceeding from both the vertical and the horizontal, and back again to the vertical. It has at no point either vertical or horizontal. This has an analog in music, in which the revolving chord, in which the chord of longing and striving and the chord of rest and fulfillment were the dominant seventh and the tonic, are reconciled also in painting, in those secondary and tertiary colors made combinations of the primaries. And all such secondary and derived elements in a work of art will be M or F according to the characteristics of the one or the other predominant, just as a child is either a boy or a girl, and each will have its complementary and completing polar opposite. Here is the world order in graphic representation, a universal formula of forms. This simple tracery of lines on paper is really a window into nature's workshop, revealing her astonishing uniformity, the same proceeding endlessly repeated, the same generic forms and arrangements perpetually reappearing, as do the reciprocal parallelograms and the square. For one underlining law governs all structure, whether that of the atom, the molecule, the cell, the organ, or the organism, a building, a symphony, or the figures of a dance. An atom is a planetary system. A vertebrate is a system of spine. A race, a clan, a family go through the same developmental phase as does an individual. Every branch of every tree repeats the tree, and every leaf, the branch. Each rivulet is a little book, and every book, or every brook, a little river, while in the shapes assumed by a river and its estuaries, the tree form strangely reappears. We are blind to the similarities between things apparently unrelated because the difference in the material constitution, spatial magnitude, and temporal duration. But if we will look around us, forgetting our clocks and our tape measures and seeing all in the light of relativity, the truth of the statement, nature is the same in all her parts, we will take on a new significance. The highest function of art is to reveal the world order, to publish cosmic truths by the means of symbols apprehensible by the senses, more powerful than words. Now the cosmic truth, which transcends all others, is that cosmic is itself an androgynous being, nature eternal embrace of polar opposites. A work of art, therefore, thought to be many things besides, is of inner necessity a love song, an epitome expressing in terms of beauty the many marriages. For, in the words of Miss Browning, the essence of all beauty I call love, the attribute, the evidence, the end, the consummation to the inward sense of beauty apprehended from without, I still call love. Thus ends chapter 5, the many marriages of the eternal poles. Such an approach to the study of nature and art, for both are governed by the same laws, bring home the truth of Francis Thompson's statement, nature is but an imperfect actress, whose constant changes of dress never change her manner and method, who is the same in all her parts. But instead of attempting to illustrate this by a number of concrete examples, let us rather choose for that purpose some appropriate mathematical symbol, because mathematics poses the inestimable advantage of universality. They constitute the clothesline upon which all the bright garments of nature and the muses may be strung. I therefore present in this connection a geometrical diagram which seems perfectly to surmise summarize and symbolize the order yet intricate interrelations of M and F. This is known to the students of dynamic symmetry as the rectangle of the whirling squares. So called because its continual reciprocal cuts off squares. Its construct is below shown and described. It will be noted that the rectangle and its inner subdivision provide a perfect framework for the development of a logarithmic spiral, which is the unit form of nature. Books have been devoted to the demonstration of the truth of this, but the reason for such a statement cannot be given here, being outside the present line of inquiry.